Hello and welcome to Global News Recap, your trusted source for the latest and most impactful stories from around the world. I am Palum David, and today we'll bring you an overview of events shaping nations, communities, and lives, from security crisis to natural disasters to political shifts and global policy updates. Stay with us as we break down these stories one by one and give you the context you need to understand what's happening and why it matters. Nigeria is facing a worsening security crisis marked by mass kidnappings, bandit attacks, and terrorist incursions across multiple states. In response, the federal government has declared a nationwide state of emergency while the Senate investigates the spending of millions on a program meant to protect schools. The Nigerian Senate has set up a 13-member ad hoc committee to probe the spending of over $30 million on the federal Safe Schools program launched in 2014 after the Chibok schoolgirls' abduction. The initiative, coordinated by agencies including NSCDC and the Safe School Parents Watch Network, aims to protect students, teachers, and school infrastructure from attacks. Despite billions budgeted over the years, 30 states are yet to implement the initiative fully. Most coordination centers remain unfurnished without surveillance technology or early warning systems. So far, 11,550 schools are registered on the National Monitoring Platform, but gaps in the funding and implementation leave children vulnerable. On November 17, gunmen attacked Government Girls Comprehensive Secondary School in Maga, Kebbi State, killing the vice principal and abducting 25 schoolgirls who were freed days later. 2 days prior, 38 worshippers were abducted from a church in Erugu, Kwara State, and on November 21st, 303 students and staff were kidnapped from St. Mary's Catholic School in Papiri, Niger State, with only 50 managing to escape. In Isapa near Erugu, 11 residents, including children and pregnant women, were abducted by gunmen on November 24th, highlighting a growing pattern of attacks across north-central Nigeria. Analysts note that areas along the borders of Kwara, Kogi, and Niger State are particularly vulnerable. In response to escalating attacks, President Bola Tinubu declared a nationwide state of emergency on insecurity. The presidency has authorized the recruitment of 20,000 additional police officers, raising new intakes to 50,000. The Army and State Security Service are also recruiting, while the SSS has been ordered to deploy trained forest guards and hire additional personnel to flush out armed groups hiding in Nigeria's forest. And still in West Africa, Guinea-Bissau has once again plunged into political uncertainty after the military seized power just hours before the presidential election results were due to be announced. It is the 9th coup or attempted coup in Western Central Africa in just 5 years, and another chapter in Guinea-Bissau's long history of instability. On Thursday, soldiers installed Major General Hunter Itaha as transitional president a day after ousting incumbent leader Omar Sissoko Embalo. Embalo was later flown to Senegal following diplomatic interventions by the regional bloc ECOWAS. The self-styled High Military Command for the Restoration of Order announced on state television that it had taken control, accusing politicians and drug traffickers of attempting to capture Guinean democracy. General Itaha said the coup was necessary to stop what he called a narco-trafficking-backed plot. He promised a 1-year transition period beginning immediately and appointed Major General Thomas Njasi as a new Army Chief of Staff. Gunfire was heard for nearly an hour on Wednesday around the Electoral Commission and the Presidential Palace moments before the military announced its takeover. And now we head to France, where the country is reintroducing a form of national military service nearly 30 years after scrapping conscription. President Emmanuel Macron said the voluntary program will begin next year as Europe faces what he calls a growing threat from Russia. Speaking at a military base in the French Alps, President Macron announced a new voluntary national service for young people aged 18 to 19. The scheme will run for 10 months, it will be paid, and will begin by mid-2026. Macron says the project is inspired by similar programs in other European countries and is part of France's wider efforts to strengthen its defenses as Russia's war in Ukraine continues to unsettle the continent. He told troops that France cannot remain idle, as all the European allies are advancing in response to a threat that weighs on them all. The plan will start with 3,000 volunteers in 2026, rising to 10,000 by 2030. Macron says his long-term ambition is to reach 50,000 young people by 2036, depending on how global threats evolve. The program will cost about 2 billion euros. Participants will serve only on French soil and may choose to return to civilian life, join the reserves, or remain in the armed forces after completing their service. Flooding across southern Asia has worsened, with the death toll now climbing beyond 320. Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia are among the hardest hit after days of torrential rainfall intensified by a rare tropical storm system. In southern Thailand, authorities say the number of deaths have now risen to 145 after a week of relentless monsoon rains. More than 3.5 billion people have been affected across 8 provinces. Entire neighborhoods in the southern city of Hat Yai, the worst hit area, remain submerged. Although the rains have eased, residents are wading through ankle-deep waters with electricity still cut off in many parts. Hospitals are overwhelmed. At Songkala Hospital, the morgue has run out of space and white refrigerated trucks are now being used to store bodies. Thailand's flood relief authorities say the country is moving into rehabilitation phase with teams racing to restore power, clear debris, and reopen access roads. Across the border, Indonesian Sumatra Island is facing the deadliest impacts. Officials say that 174 people are confirmed dead and 79 people are still missing after floods and landslides swept through the provinces. North Sumatra recorded the highest casualties, with 116 deaths and dozens still unaccounted for. In Padang Parianam, where water levels reached 1 meter high, standard residents say they are running out of food and supplies. Aid is being drifted into more remote areas as authorities try to restore power and communications. In the devastated town of Batang Toru, 7 unidentified victims were buried in a mass grave after bodies began to decompose in the heat. Hong Kong is reeling from its deadliest fire in nearly 8 decades. The massive blaze tore through a high-rise housing complex in the Tai Po district, killing at least 128 people, with around 200 still missing. The fire started on Wednesday afternoon at Wang Fu Court, a cluster of 8 32-story residential towers home to more than 4,600 people. Firefighters say they received the first alert at 2:51 p.m., but within minutes, the flame had reached through bamboo scaffolding that wrapped the buildings for ongoing renovations, spreading vertically up the towers and quickly entering the apartments. In just 4 hours, 7 of the 8 towers were engulfed. Thick black smoke choked stairwells and blocked escape routes, making it nearly impossible for residents on higher floors to flee. By Friday morning, authorities confirmed the fire was largely extinguished, but emergency crews continued combing through hundreds of flats, breaking into units one by one in a desperate search for survivors. Outside emergency shelters, distraught relatives searched for loved ones. Authorities now confirmed that flammable foam boards were found blocking smoke apartment windows and may have fueled the inferno. Police have arrested 3 officials from Prestige Construction, the firm contracted to renovate the estate, on suspicion of manslaughter because residents had complained as far back as 2024 about potential fire hazards, including the green protective mesh and polystyrene insulation used during the renovation. They were reportedly told that the fire risk was relatively low. But police say some of the materials on the scaffolding, including nets, tabs, and plastic sheets, are now suspected not to have met the fire safety standards. There were also warnings about faulty fire hoses, aging equipment, and non-functioning alarm systems. The blaze has renewed scrutiny of Hong Kong's traditional bamboo scaffolding, a construction method used for more than 2,000 years. While cherished for its cultural value, experts say bamboo burns quickly, especially in the dry season. Hong Kong's leader John Lee has ordered citywide inspections of all scaffolding and a full review of fire safety practices. He also announced a 300 million Hong Kong dollars emergency fund to support affected families. For now, the focus remains on the rescue efforts, the victims, and the urgent search for accountability. That's all for this edition of Global News Recap. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I am Palum David. See you next week.